Guys, welcome to the Caring for Creatures Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's good to be with you on a Thursday across Central Virginia, frankly, the world here on Facebook. A lot we're going to cover on the Caring for Creatures Show. Mary Birkholz is going to join us momentarily. She's welcomed Heather Decker and Kristin Brown to the program, long-term staffers that really are key components to the healthy medicine, medical, sustainability side at Caring for Creatures. Right. They have pursuits of being vet techs in the near future. So we're going to put that in the spotlight. We're going to put Central Virginia's first no-kill animal sanctuary, which is Caring for Creatures, in the spotlight on the I Love CVille network. We are live on 7 channels across the I Love CVille network, and we ask you to like and share the stream to further spotlight CFC and the efforts that Mary Birkholz has done for more than 3 decades. Harris Tolber is our director. I think, Harris, on that note, we should go to the studio cam, and we should welcome Mary Birkholz, Heather Decker, and Kristin Brown to the world. I am going to get out of the way for you, and you spotlight who we have on set.
Okay. Kristin and Heather are Caring for Creatures medical team. Everyone to some degree is involved with medical, but they're the ones who are responsible for dealing with anything that comes up. Injuries, colds, the I don't know what it is yet thing, and we can have a lot of those. And the animals that we get do not arrive in robust health. Okay, so there's a combination of things that needs to happen. Sometimes it's direct medical, whether that's medications of some sort. Some have skin issues, and diet. We put together diets for, animals that have special needs. So these two work with all of those aspects at once. And I'll just remind everyone that we usually average about 200 animals at Caring for Creatures. So, huge. It's huge. And I don't know, I thought maybe we could get right into we have some examples. What we want to do is give everyone an idea of some of the challenging medical things that we face. And this is just normal.
We're excited to spotlight these challenges, and we will get to you ladies in a matter of moments. Before we do, I think one of the important aspects is to maybe recap the week that was for Caring for Creatures.
And I
because
have
every week there's something going on in Mary Birkholz's world.
You got that right. Anyway, in everyone's world in Virginia, I wanted to read this. I don't know if all of you know, on Monday, Virginia's governor signed in this new bill into law that will make animal cruelty toward cats and dogs a felony in the Commonwealth. And I'm just going to read some of this one short paragraph so I don't get the wording wrong. But the state's current law requires the animal to die from its injuries for the abuse to be deemed a felony. But under the new law, which comes into effect July 1st, anyone who tortures, willfully inflicts inhumane injury or pain, or cruelly and unnecessarily beats, maims, or mutilates any dog or cat can be found guilty of a Class 6 felony, punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $2,500. So yay, that's a huge step forward.
Let's celebrate, let's champion it. I'd say it's about time.
Yeah, it's about time. It's past time.
And I think a lot of this, and we'll get the ladies involved too, I think a lot of this has to do with, did you follow the story of the pit bull in Richmond?
Yes.
The pit bull, and I'll recap it really quickly. It's a horrific story. Someone tied a pit bull to a electric pole, doused this dog with gasoline, and then lit the dog on fire. Exactly. And then ran away.
Yeah.
Miserable, horrible person.
Absolutely.
So I think this is, in a lot of ways, a reflection of that.
It was. And there was one prior to that, and forgive me because I'm not sure I'm remembering her name, but somebody beat this dog up with a machete. And because the dog didn't die, the person, could not be charged with a felony. And, of course, they haven't found the pit bull's torturer yet. So hopefully that happens.
Thank goodness this has finally come to the forefront. Good news
Exactly.
right there. I will get out of the way.
Okay, I have a couple more things.
Yes.
The Power of 10, our Power of 10 campaign, which means what we're asking is for folks to send in at least $10. We can do $10. We can do a lot with $10. And I'm hoping to have a photo come up now of a dog by the name of Lainey that arrived at the sanctuary on Saturday. She was picked up as a stray and taken to a high kill facility. And about, what'd you guys say, 90% of her body is hairless?
Yeah, it's at least
Yeah,
that.
she has severe case of mange, demodeck mange.
Uh-huh.
And so she's now at Caring for Creatures, so your dollars are also going towards helping Lainey as well as the other 200 animals that reside there. So your dollars go to help so many animals, and she's just one example of the type of help, that is needed out there.
And we're showing photos
Sickening.
of the animals now.
Okay, all right, good. After that, I can announce that all of Star's puppies, I know I've announced them from time to time here. We showed pictures. I don't think you have any photos, though, Harris, but that's okay. They've all got permanent homes. Number going home tomorrow and 4 on Saturday. Was that right?
Yeah.
So that's all very good news. And we have a fairly solid application on Mom, too. So that's all good news. And we have another campaign that was extended. It's 31 gifts. And quite frankly, until the nice person offered to do this for us, I was not familiar with 31 gifts. But they have products for everyone. And thermals, organizing totes, purses, wallets, home decor. And Laura Heinzman is a longtime supporter of CFC, sells products through 31 and is willing to donate 20% of her sales that she gets through a special link, which you can find on the Caring for Creatures website. So check out their things. They have some good sales, and every item you purchase will get a percentage of that.
I love it.
Through April.
I
Through
love
April.
it. Another big-time
Yeah.
supporter is watching. Patty Bowden says, hello,
Hey,
Mary.
Patty.
You're looking great.
Hi.
Of
Thank
course, from Animal Connection. And Ronnie Lazary is commenting, saying
Ron
that
Lozier,
I
yep.
absolutely love Mary. Like
Hi,
and
Ron.
share the stream for us, guys. Introduce us to Heather and to Kristin Brown,
Okay.
please.
So, again, Heather and Kristin are vet tech personnel at Caring for Creatures. They not only are busy about 8 hours a day, if not more, that's putting it mildly, 8 hours, they're also studying on the side, and it won't be all that long. They'll be getting their Virginia veterinary technician veterinary, am I right? Is that the right name? Veterinary technician license. So what I'll do is pass off to Kristin to begin with, and she'll introduce you and talk a little bit about a dog by the name of Grace, who resides in my office.
Cool. Tell us about Grace.
So when Grace first came, she was very, very skinny. She came from South Carolina.
Okay.
She was left in her home for a few weeks because her owner went into assisted living and never told anyone she had a dog. So she was found about maybe 2 weeks later, very, very skinny. She probably weighed 35 pounds soaking wet. And she lived in the scratching post bathroom for about almost a year of her life at first, until she moved into Mary's office. And I was one of her main caretakers, so I taught her how to walk on a leash, got her up to a healthy weight, and then she started to have seizure-like activity after we treated her for her heartworms. And so we went to a bunch of specialists about that, and then she's now maintained on a anti-seizure medication and only has certain people that still really deal with her today.
Yeah, we call her our poster child for heartworm preventative meds every month. Lord knows, please get your animals on heartworm preventative, because the damage it can do is horrible.
Right.
Horrible. And I listened to this dog, and that's on close to $100 a month of meds for, even after she was treated for heartworms and is now negative for heartworm, the damage the worms did to her heart is still there. and she'll have that for her entire life.
What's the bond you have with Grace?
I think I was one of the first people she really connected with. So I can pretty much do anything to her, from carrying her when she won't go outside to me and Heather are the only two that can really deal with her when the vet comes, because she doesn't really like procedures, but with us there she feels more, I guess, secure, because she knows that we're not going to let anything happen to her.
I love it. I love it. Now, Heather, talk to us about your role with Caring for Creatures. Both these fantastic ladies, long-term team members at CFC. One of the things I've seen from doing this show and meeting some of the volunteers, some of the staffers, some of the donors, some of the people close to Caring for Creatures, the more time you spend at the sanctuary and with CFC, the more this sanctuary gets kind of like woven in the fabric of who you are.
It is. I mean, you kind of don't wake up any day and say, oh, I'm gonna, just start my day. You're like, oh, let me check my email because I need to find out, is what's happening with this. Did Kristin get an answer about that? Did Mary text me with the answer about this? And we're always constantly in communication all day long. I mean, anybody that knows me knows that they kind of get annoyed because they're like, oh, it's just Kristin. And I'm like, but it's important, and I mean, it'll be 10 o'clock at night and I'll be like, oh, I forgot to tell Mary. And so, I mean, I know.
You text Mary at 10 o'clock?
I do. She doesn't respond until about 5 o'clock in the morning.
See, I'm sleeping by
See,
then.
I know Mary won't get back, but
I get her back because
Yeah.
I'm 4:35 in the morning
Yeah.
texting back.
yeah, and so it's okay, but it's better. You can't really get around not caring. You can't, because at the end of the day, they're the ones saying they're staring at you. They're the ones saying like, hey, I'm still hungry, or like, my tummy hurts and stuff. So you just feel this need to help because they can't really do anything about it. And a lot of the animals we get they didn't choose to be in that situation. They didn't choose, like Grace, for her owner to just leave her. So it kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little.
I love it. Joe Thomas, thank you for watching. Joe Thomas joined us on the show. Mary goes on his show all the time.
Yeah.
Laura Southworth, Kathy Kravinsky, Bill Granford. We have folks from Crozet to Louisa to Orange, Richmond, and D.C. on the stream right now. Your favorite aspects of working at CFC?
That Mary's super understanding when you need to run somewheres because your life's crazy too, and just when somebody gets adopted that you kind of watched go from really kind of shambles to being a great animal, and that you can see it but somebody else sees it, and you kind of can say, okay, they see it. That's it.
Worth every minute I spent. Yeah.
Every time I got clawed by a cat because they didn't want me to pet it, and I said, yes, I'm gonna pet you. You're gonna be friendly. Or every time you sat in a bathroom with a dog who's terrified, but they just have to be okay with your presence. That's what makes it worth it.
How do you manage, Kristin, the falling in love aspect of the animals at the sanctuary with then watching them leave and be homed and adopted? I mean, that's the thing I always like to ask and spotlight on the show, because that ultimately is the goal, is to home the dogs in a sustainable, long-term environment where they can find, quote, unquote, their people, they're human.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would think with some of the animals, you're building some emotional bonds here.
Yes. Sometimes it breaks your heart, but you have to think that they're going somewhere to be better, and they're going to have people that love them, and that you'll always be a special part in their life. But the fact that they get to go home and have a person of their own, it's a really big joy.
I think it helps too, because sometimes when we get one of those ones that really kind of tugs at us, somebody else comes in a couple days later, and so you're kind of distracted because now you're on to somebody else, and then like a week later you're like, oh, that okay, and then you kind of have your little mental breakdown in the car, and you cry about it, but then
one thing I'm going to throw this to them and then get your take. One thing that I really admire about you is the longevity that you have behind this. 30 years of caring for creatures. Central Virginia's first no-kill animal sanctuary. Sacrificed a lot of your life to the most at-risk animals in the Commonwealth and the East Coast to give them a second chance at life. Where I'm going with this, and then I'm curious of their response, and then your response to their response. Do you ladies understand or appreciate, you know, I'm sure you do, let me try it differently. The magnitude of working for an organization like this with that kind of tenure, and like the amount of impact in the animal and human world, because animals have impacts on the animal and human world that caring for creatures has. If you could put that in perspective and what you think about that. You want to go first on that one? That's a deep question.
Okay. I mean, yeah, but it's odd at the same time because caring for creatures is so off the beaten path. So it's kind of like when you drive through the gate, you're in your own little world and you don't really think about how far you're reaching out to other places. But then when you see people coming from DC or South Carolina and Tennessee and all these crazy places, you're like, wow, this is a deal. This is big. And it just reiterates what a great person Mary is to reach out, and that, you know, she is fantastic at networking because she has her fingers so sprawled out in so many things all the time.
What do you think?
Well, you know, the fact that Mary's a humongous animal advocate makes her one of my role models, actually. And she's been that since I was younger, because my mom has worked for her off and on since I was 1.
Okay.
So I've always kind of had my foot in the door a little bit. Mm-hmm. So Mary's become one of my role models because I've always wanted to help animals. So to be a part of what she does is really great.
No, this is where.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to go with that first.
Yeah, you're mean. And I thank you for those comments, but you know, always for me, it's about the animals. It's not about me. I get to live my dream, that's true. At sacrifice, I will say that. The commitment I've made, I've, you know, not done other things that potentially everyone else in the world does in their life. But that's okay for me because I have really neat experiences. But I feel as though we are in our own little world sometimes, like Heather says. And you become so caught up in the animals that you're not really thinking about it all that much. It's like, what do we have to do next? What's this one? And we don't know. Some of them we know that are coming to us because we pull from a high kill shelter. We don't always know. And one of the animals we were thinking to share the story about maybe did not end the way we would have wanted it to. Her name was Liberty, but folks brought her and babies into us, a mama cat with, how many did she have? 5 babies. Mm-hmm. And some folks had to trap them. The kitties were on their property. And when we got them, the babies were, you know, in okay shape. The mother, not so much. And as it ended up, and I'll let them give you all the medical stuff, the mom had some partial paralysis due to being shot at, and she had BBs or whatever on her spinal cord, and as a result, she was unable to urinate on her own. And so we worked really hard. Well, I'll stop there and let them tell you about everything they did. And I want to say that the commitment that they had to make to this cat, her needs every single day, and that's just one of 200, is to me an inspiration, quite frankly.
So when Liberty actually got there, she wasn't super feral.
Yeah.
I don't really like the word feral.
I know.
There's so real ferals, but they're so far and few between. But you couldn't really handle her, but you could because she didn't know you were touching her in the back end because she had so much paralysis. And then we ended up adopting out all of her kittens, and then she lived in the Scratching Post kitchen because it was more, I don't know, personal.
And there was less cats
in there.
She felt more comfortable there.
And we would have to express her between 3 and 5 times a day, and which became actually pretty intense towards the end because you could tell she was just kind of over it. And I mean, you know, a cat that doesn't like to be handled now being picked up and expressed 5 times a day, nobody wants that. And she ended up just kind of going into this urinary problems, and we ended up having to do about 30 UA tests on her to make sure that she was okay and that she wasn't going to have to be put on meds or anything again. And then we ended up having to make a choice because she got some wear spots on her feet from how she had learned to walk, because towards the end she did get to where she could move around and she was walking pretty good, and she would be pretty friendly to people that she knew weren't going to do anything that she didn't want, that came with the treats and all the good stuff, you know. She loved all the volunteers. Me and Kristin, not so much. And we decided it was a really awful day that we had to decide, you know, is she still happy? Is it worth it for her? Is this what she wants? And we ended up making the call to humanely euthanize her just because she was becoming, her medical issues were becoming much more than we could handle or she could handle. And there was, it was something that was never going to go away.
Right.
So we had to make the call.
And you often say on the show, the animal will tell you when.
Mm-hmm.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Will often tell you when. Jump in here, Kristin.
So, are we still talking about Liberty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So she actually, near the end, had the wear spots that Heather was talking about that our vet thought were from her urine, from where she also how she would walk, and that she would constantly leak urine because she was partly incontinent. And so me and Heather actually had to wrap her feet twice a day.
Yeah.
And make her like have little booties on. And she was okay with it the first couple of times, but then after the first couple of times she was like, okay, I think that is enough. Y'all are bothering
She was not,
me.
yeah. I had to do it once when neither of you were there, and yes, she was not pleased with the procedure.
She didn't like her little booties and didn't really like to be handled unless you were giving her treats the whole time. Because she got to the point where Heather couldn't hold her, and we had to switch off who would hold her and who would do the wrapping.
Yeah,
and
it was always like a triangle, because we would wrap Kayla in, who's our main cat feeder, too, and be like, can you touch her today? Does she like you? And because I did it yesterday. And like, so we had like a whole rotation of how to just manage who could touch Liberty that day. And it became, you could tell, because she would just be so, it was a whole different side of her that none of us had even ever seen out of her, even with her being kind of about all the things.
Janet Wright, thank you for watching. She says, God bless you, Mary, for all you do for these fur kids. Heather Shauna Shaw says, you go, cuzzo. Miss you and the kids. We want to thank some other people for watching. Then I'm going to throw it back to you. You know, Leanna Quinn, Liza Cheyenne Agaloff. Is that right?
Sure, yeah.
She's watching on the show here. Like and share the feed. This is how do you not let it, like, how do you manage, like, not letting it, like, demoralize you? Like, how do you manage, like, you know, what do you do to stay, like, every day, like, you know, upbeat? Because you guys are.
I have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
There are some days that are a lot harder than others.
Yeah.
Especially when, you know, some of them are your favorite animals or you've seen them for so long. It sometimes is really hard, but you just have to continue to think that they are in a better place. And I know I never really knew about the Rainbow Bridge until I started working for Mary, and I really like that concept because
I love that concept.
That's like a place where they can become young again
Right.
and not be in pain. So I would just like to think that they're all there, and that's what keeps me
Put the
going.
Rainbow Bridge in perspective. I love the Rainbow Bridge concept. That's I had to put, like, a month ago, and she helped me with this, put my almost 17-year-old dog down. And the thought of the Rainbow Bridge was, you know, where she's back again, chasing the Kong or the tennis ball, like, you know, eating a Kong that's stuffed full of peanut butter and spending hours doing it, you know, like has full use of all 4 of her legs, is able to jump and run. I mean, that's how it was helpful.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I was a little iffy on the Rainbow Bridge thing until, I don't know, this might make you upset, I'm sorry. But
Okay.
Mary used to have a dog named Baron, and he was a great dog.
He comes up a lot.
He does. 'Cause
He was a very powerful boy.
yes. And it came to the point where Mary had to make the decision, and we had to let Baron go. And that day when I was leaving Caring for Creatures, and there was a rainbow coming, and it hadn't rained, there was nothing, there was just this rainbow out of nowheres, and it was just, and I was like, oh, there it is. Like, you idiot, you should have believed. And yeah, you knew it was him, because I mean, there was not a speck of rain in the sky. It wasn't supposed to rain for weeks. And there was this beautiful, full-blown rainbow and it was basically going across the driveway as I was leaving. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, there it is.
There he is.
Yeah, it just put it right into perspective.
And I saw the same one.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, he's like giving me some sign, I made it, I'm fine. It's all beautiful here.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And I feel like, we struggle sometimes with these decisions, as these are lives. You're making decisions on someone's life, and we don't take that lightly. And so we talk a lot about that, and we talk about is this animal ready to move forward? Is the animal just in too much pain? There are some animals I have had over the years that can leave on their own.
Right.
And do very peacefully.
It would be much easier if it always happened.
I know, wouldn't it be? But
It'd make my
life.
job easier.
Yes,
It's not life.
Most of the time that's not how it works. But if you know that you've done all you can do, and that the animal is going to, once released from that body, is just going to be fine, you can move through it a little bit easier.
Patricia Wade says, Kristin and Heather, God bless you for both of you for what you do at Caring for Creatures. Thank you for watching, Patricia. Thank you for watching, Hazel Bailey, Polly Newsom Searles. Thank you for watching, Polly. What are the long-term goals? How is Caring for Creatures helping you guys personally and professionally? Vet tech. I mean, something that's on the horizon.
Yeah.
Put that in perspective.
It's taught me a lot of patience to deal with people and animals. I mean, just in general, because most of the time where there's an animal, there's a person. And so you learn a lot of patience, and you learn not to rush things, because medically, you're doing something and it should be happening and fixing and making better, and sometimes it doesn't. So you have to have patience, and you have to look at the big picture, and it's always about the big picture, because with everything, personally too, it kind of makes you think, okay, so if I'm looking at the whole thing here, I can take that home and I can say, okay, so yeah, my 5-year-old did this, and you can kind of, take a deep breath, and you kind of, okay. It's kind of like a what would Mary do situation.
What would Mary do? Jump in here, Mary.
Yeah, it is. It begins to affect all parts of your life. And, if I didn't force Heather to, at long last, take 2 days off a week instead of just one, she, would probably still be working 6 days.
Yeah.
But as I've always said, and I know if you've listened to the show, you hear me say this now and again, but it's the animals who teach us and show us. And it's the only way I have gotten through all these 30 years, because I look at them, and when I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I'm feeling frightened, or I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling that's not necessarily positive, I can look out my window, because I live there, and I can look out my window and I go, yeah, you know what? You are much worse off than me, and you're doing just fine. So if you can do it, so can I. And I think you begin to take what they are giving you, their own struggles and how they get through them, and you apply it to your own lives.
They teach you kind of to not take everything so seriously too, because there are times where you're just, everything is going crazy. There's 800 things going on. You're behind on paperwork and all this other stuff, and you've got puppies going out, and you only there till 4:00. I mean, you could spend the night, but I'm sure my family would probably get a little annoyed with me.
Right.
And you're going crazy, and then you see like a dog like Owen, who's out there just tossing a ball around by himself and slamming around, and he's having the time of his life, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
It's not that serious.
He's got the right idea.
Just take a breath. It's not that bad. It's okay. And you just kind of learn to take it moment at a time and slow everything down and look at the big picture.
AJ Costello, thank you for watching here on the show. Janae Johnson, thank you for watching. Like and share the stream, guys. That puts caring for creatures even more in the spotlight. Cats, dogs, all the above. You got a personal preference?
Well, it's funny. Actually, when I started at Caring for Creatures, I liked dogs more.
Uh-huh.
And then after being there for about 2 years, Mary made me one of the main cat feeders. So then I started to deal with cats more, so I liked them more. But now, since coming back from my maternity leave, I like both about the same now, since I deal with both now on a more daily basis.
Are one more difficult to home than the other?
I would say yes.
Yeah?
Because, we have a lot more cats, so there's a lot more to choose from.
Right.
And cats,
They're not as easy to give it up.
yeah.
Dogs are flat out right there. The moment they meet you, most of the time, they're like, here I am, this is what I'm about, this is how it is. And cats, you kind of got to let them come to you. You got to take your time, and they're not as trusting always at first. I think cats remember a lot better than dogs.
You sort of have to earn their respect and their trust, and they're not pleasers in the sense.
Exactly.
Same way dogs love to please their humans, and all those funny jokes that they say, the cats rule and all this other stuff. Well, it's pretty much true.
Yeah.
They do.
Polly
Absolutely.
Newsome Searles. She says, caring for creatures really cares. They get attached to their residents, and when they cross the Rainbow Bridge, they are affected as well. Love to all the fur babies. Love you, Kristin, and I'm super proud of you. How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel good.
Yeah?
Because people are realizing
That you're making an impact.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's why I love this show, is because I see from the people watching the show, and I get to sit next to you, and a lot of the same tendencies that you guys are mentioning, where you look up to her. I also see this I'm gonna embarrass you a little bit, compassionate and full of grace and full of consistent energy and a consistent mood, and a leader, but a way that you do it in a way where you empower the folks that are around you. And you're constantly working to a common goal. And I see those traits, and I also want to embody them as well. So one of my favorite aspects of the week is doing this show, because a lot of those things, I want to get out of the way, and I want to hear the story of this animal.
We have this great
that
story.
Is what, Houdini? That tries to perform magic
That
tricks.
could have been her name,
and escape
actually,
all the time.
So I'll start it out. Maya is the name of a young shepherd mixie dog. And
Shepherd.
I know, leave it to those shepherds to do these things. And smaller in size, though. But anyway, she was brought into a high kill facility, one that we regularly work with. And because of her extreme fear and shyness, she was just almost one of these statue dog type things. And, they just don't get chosen by other rescues or for adoption. So when we found out about her, we agreed to take her into our facility. And on her transport up, one of our regular transport ladies was going to bring her to us. And she got her out of the van and set her on the ground. She had a harness on, and within probably 15 seconds, I don't know, I'm making that up maybe, but not long, she rolled on her back, she maneuvered herself, got out of that harness, and took off. And we're talking near Ashland, Virginia. That's where the transport stops, so it's not like it's in the middle of nowhere. It's busy. She ended up roaming neighborhoods for over 40 days in that location.
40 days?
Yeah. Oh, probably over if I don't have the right number.
I think it was 41.
How's the animal surviving for 41 days?
Well, I can say that we had the Donna, the transport person, Laura, who is, I think, if she's still on, Laura Southworth, has worked in rescue in the past. She happened to live near this. and then one other person, and forgive me, I've forgotten her name, they took it on themselves to follow, kept looking for Maya, and she ended up in this neighborhood. They got food with the intent of catching her, of course. And so for weeks, these ladies, and she finally Maya settled into a neighborhood where she felt safe.
Okay.
And they kept putting food out. And finally, she wouldn't go near a trap, so that was not going to work. And they set up a pen and put a rope on the gate, set up a tent that they got into at night, put food in the back of the pen, and waited and waited. And at long last, and I know I'm shortening the story a bit, but she went to the back end of the pen, and they pulled the gate closed, and they had her. So they brought her to Caring for Creatures the next day, and we had her for a week or two, and one of our volunteers, whose intentions were very positive, had her just outside the office, and she somehow got away from him and took off again. And so now I'm going to pass the baton to Heather, because she was, between me, her, and Diane, had to now take the second. We had some funny instances. Yeah. Maya's quite the character.
She's a ham. So, we did all the things that day, and, we're trying to narrow down where she is because she was moving really fast, and it, of course, starts raining because that's what it does in Virginia. And
right.
So
especially this year.
Yeah. So I'm sitting under a tree in the middle of the field because I can hear her in the woods, and I'm like, okay, just don't pay attention to the dog. Don't be excited that it's that close to you and all this stuff. And she comes, and I'm like, but at the same time, I don't really want to be sitting under this tree in this thunderstorm. And she came out, she got halfway to the tree, and I was like, please just come here. And she just looked at me and took back off into the woods. And I was like, okay, well, that's my sign.
She's dragging a leash, by the way.
Yeah, she had a leash on the whole time. And I was like, if I could just get her close enough that I could latch onto that, I would even ski along behind her. I don't even care at this point. And then, it didn't work. And then she never went far, though. She always stayed
on the property.
Stayed on the property. And not even because the property's huge.
Right.
But she stayed in the main area. So you could always catch her either just on this wood line, just on that wood line, and then she did this weird thing where she just decided she was going to make friends with everyone.
All the dogs.
Every dog. Even dogs that are reactive to other dogs. They would just kind of look at her after they barked at her for a couple minutes, and they'd be like, well, okay. And then, they'd all just sit there. And she would just sit there and wait for them to stop yelling at her. And she'd be like, we're going to be friends. Don't worry. Yeah. And then, gosh, it was over a month, and she did this. She loves toys, but of course there's no toys just lurking around in the woods and stuff.
Right.
So every day it came to the point where she was stealing the scrub brushes for the buckets.
Yeah, we watched buckets.
And we would have to put them up and hide them and stuff, because no matter where you moved them, she would take them, and you'd catch her real early in the morning throwing them around in the driveway and stuff. But every morning for probably half that time when I would pull in, there'd be a tennis ball in my parking spot. And I park in the same spot every day. So she knew that's where I parked, or it was a scrub brush, and I would have to stop my car, get out, move the thing, then pull my car back in. And, I'd be looking around like, you're watching me, aren't you? You think this is funny.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
She did.
And then the first time we set up this whole plan, me, Mary, and Diane, and we were going to trap her. We were going to get her. She had a good routine down. It was great. We were feeding her towards the back of the pen. We had a rope. We had all this stuff. And Diane and I were hunkered down in a doghouse.
A big doghouse.
we were waiting, and it just wasn't the day. It wasn't meant to be, because she would come up, and then she just knew something was up. And then And Mary's texting me like, I don't know why she's not going in. I don't know what's happening. And then the next thing you know, Mary's saying there's a snake. And so she throws a potato out of her door at the snake.
To scare the snake because she got scared of the snake. She
yeah,
ran off.
she saw the snake and then she
took
ran off. And so Mary tried to scare the snake and threw a potato.
And
A potato.
I was in my house watching, and I was texting what I was seeing because they couldn't be out in full view.
And Diane and I are not supposed to be talking, so I'm like, she's throwing a potato. And like, we're both kind of like, what is happening out there? And so then, it got pretty dark and we called it because it was clearly just it wasn't going to happen that day. And then the next morning when I pulled in my parking spot was the potato. And so I brought it into Mary and slapped it down her desk and I said, here's your potato back. And then it was probably a couple weeks after that, and we hadn't really planned anything. We were going to try to see, what was a good day for everyone, and then we didn't end up planning it, and it was just a Sunday afternoon. We were like, I don't have to be home right now, and like, oh yeah, I've got some time. Let's just see what happens. And sure enough, it was like clockwork. She ate all her bowls right in a row. She went to the back. We pulled the thing. I went running around the side. I think I scared her as much as I scared myself because I hit the gate of the fence and was kind of like, and she was like, oh God. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it, but I'm sorry. I'm glad you're in there. And then that was it. Yeah. And she was like a whole different dog after that. I mean, she was so shy and so scared. I mean, she wasn't ever, like, oh God, don't come near me and like run away from you before she got out. But you could tell she didn't enjoy it. She didn't like you being there. But afterwards she was kind of like, hey, what's up? Like, she was a whole different dog.
This story is getting a lot of interaction on the feed. Laura Southworth says Maya's watching too. Lavon Haag was the other person who caught Maya in Ashland. Maya is doing wonderfully. She also says, Maya also wanted to say thanks to Mary and everyone at Caring for Creatures for saving her and taking great care of her. When she was at CFC, our vet was so impressed with the great medical records she had from CFC. We adopted her on January 12th and has been a great addition to our family. She does great with all of our cats and has been so good for our other dog, Little Girl. We absolutely adore her. More feedback on this. Sonia Erin Collins McCall, CFC helps Darlington Pets more than anyone will ever know. Yeah. Susan says Scotch, Socks, now Max, and Demi, now Isabel, are watching from Connecticut. Thank you, ladies, for caring for my 3 CFC alum. CFC cared for Scotch for over 7 years before he came home with me. Socks was a roommate to Finian, formerly Yeti, featured on your cat show last week. Susan, it's good from here. Susan's watching from Connecticut right now.
And Socks actually lived where Yeti did too, in the T&E.
He's FIV.
Yeah.
Devin Scott says, I miss you, Mary. It's Devin Scott. Keep up your great work. I love this show.
Hi, Devin.
I love this story. I mean, when you're hearing from all this and people responding like this, Kristin, talk to me about what you're feeling, the impact here. I love the story of Maya. I mean, just put this in perspective. What's in your head right here?
Well, actually, I didn't get to help with Maya because I was really, really pregnant at the time. But the fact that, we go at great lengths like that for animals that we have just shows not only that we care, but also our dedication to these animals.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, every now and again, we have a shy dog in particular that can be challenging. And we did have another one some years back. You might remember Charmer. Mm-hmm. That was also freaked out dog. She and her companion, Jazzy, were trapped by a stop off of Interstate 64.
Okay.
They were hanging out at this convenience store, gas station place, and looking for food. So they got trapped, and we brought them back. And again, the one slipped her lead. It was, just one of those weirdo things. And we tracked that dog for weeks. I mean, she didn't stay around. She took off, and she was up and down the main road. And I swear it was 3 months, and I finally had to. And Diane helped me a lot with just posting flyers. We drove up and down the road. We'd get sightings.
Love
People
Diane
would
White.
see her, yeah. And finally, we just had to call that, too, because, you know, you take a lot of time to do that. We gave her every opportunity we could. So, yeah, that's kind of a sad one for me because, I don't know, I can just pray she ended up with someone that, you know, was able to help her and take care of her. But it is that dedication. You just, each one is important. Everybody matters.
I love
Everybody
it.
gets
Well,
to
that's the whole
matter.
mission of CFC.
Yeah, it is.
And
It is.
I think that's why you've had success, because you never take one of them for granted. They're all treated as if they were the king and the queen.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it. What are you, anything else on your mind? You're a good talker.
Oh.
We filled 50 minutes. You're doing a great job here.
I don't know. I mean, it's really not that difficult to talk about it because it's like they're all your animals. I mean, everybody that comes to, you know, visit or look or adopt or volunteer, they're like, how do you do it? How do you not take them all home? And I'm like, well, because I spend just as much time with them as I do my own animals. So, I mean, you don't really see the difference between, you know, my dogs at home and everybody at Caring for Creatures. They're all mine.
You never get burned out of animals?
No.
No?
No.
Man, these are great team members right here.
Because if I am annoying somebody at Caring for Creatures and, like, you know, doing all the smushy puppy faces and all that stuff, and I'm like, oh, yeah, you're over it. I go home and I annoy my own dog. So they kind of get a break because I
You
go
don't
and do it
annoy
at
your
Caring for
family?
Creatures. Well, you know, they're great, but they get annoyed with me too. So they're like, you're too much.
Something about a four-legged animal. I'm
It
telling you, I
is.
feel the same way with my wolf pack. You guys crushed it. You crushed it. Anything else you're thinking, Mary, that we haven't covered?
No,
love
I
the
think,
anecdotal.
yeah, there are so many things like that, and we start to take them for granted ourselves sometimes because things move, as they say, so quickly. Just when you think you're almost getting current with paperwork or whatever, you know, in drives someone with a litter of puppies or kittens and what have you. So life changes very quickly.
That's
And you
exactly what
just
happened with
learn
Liberty.
to go with the flow. You know, okay, this is what we're doing now. Alrighty. And within all of 5 minutes, you're permanently attached to that animal that just arrived. Your heart's already gone for it. And so that's why you do it. I mean, it's your heart connects. So you're always at risk of being hurt. You know, your heart gets, it's not really broken. It's just being in a position of having to say farewell a lot. Not necessarily because someone has died, but because they're moving on into an adoptive home, which is really our success.
Right.
You know, that's our
That's the
success.
end goal.
That's the end goal, and that completes the circle.
And I will
it's
say
why
that
we were there.
the updates.
Yes, the
everybody
updates.
updates
Oh
are
my
the most
gosh.
important thing
From
because
our
From the
adopters.
person?
From our
yeah. So
adopters,
when
yeah.
adopters
Make our
we
day.
constantly, they probably think we're nuts because we're like, please send us updates. No, seriously, we need updates. But it's because
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, we
love
sometimes we birth those animals, and
Yeah.
you know, we've seen them through the worst to the best, or you know, the best to the even greater. And so
Well said.
when you just don't know what's going on, you're always like, huh, I wonder what happened to that.
I love
And
it.
then
Yeah.
it gives you a little bit of closure because you can
Yeah.
see them sitting on a couch loving their life, and
Yeah.
you know,
When you said there's on 200 animals, 200, I mean, that's like 200 different stories. That is 200
It
different
is 200
stories.
different stories.
Yeah.
It's 200 individuals,
Yeah.
and each one special.
And 200
So-
people touched by that individual
Yeah,
animal.
yeah.
And 200 like
Yeah.
different ways you can impact a family or someone's
Yeah,
life.
yeah. And you get the volunteers involved, which you
It's
know.
like a viral snowball effect.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have their own stories to tell that are personal for them.
It's like compound interest. It's like
Yeah.
literally like an exponential impact from one
Yeah.
animal at CFC.
Absolutely,
I love it. I love it. Thursdays at 3 p.m. We have a good time talking about caring for creatures. I encourage you to follow them online at caringforcreatures.org.
Right.
guys, being straightforward here, the ultimate mission with what we're doing here with the Caring for Creatures show is to raise awareness for caring for creatures, and we hope the enhanced awareness for CFC will encourage you to support them from a fundraising or from a donation standpoint. And if you're not in a position to do that, and $10 makes an impact. If you're not in a position to do that, then from a volunteering standpoint.
Right, absolutely.
Or from sharing the news on Caring for Creatures online, or adopting an animal.
Right.
Anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole premise of the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, everybody.
You guys did well.
Thanks,
Yeah.
ladies.
You crushed it. I mean, come on. This went well, right?
Yeah.
You did great work.
They did perfect.
Perfect work.
Yes.
Thank you to Heather Decker and to Kristin Brown. Of course, Mary Birkholz. I'm Jerry. Harris Tolber's our director. And Judah and Lauren, also producers of the show. It's the Caring for Creatures show on Thursdays at 3 o'clock. Put it in your calendar and join us next week because we spotlight something really special here. We will see you in a week on the Caring for Creatures show. Take care.